everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the YarnderWoman Podcast. Today is Saturday the 2nd of April 2016, and as always I'm coming to you from Perth in Western Australia. I, being YarnderWoman, otherwise known as Melinda, or Melinda, otherwise known as YarnderWoman, whichever. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry under YarnderWoman, and we also have the YarnderWoman Podcast Ravelry group. Come and join us if you haven't already. It's a lovely place to chat. And you can find all the show notes and links to things that I talk about on the blog, which is www.yarnderwoman.blogspot.com.au. I hope you've had a lovely week since we last saw each other. Shortly I will be going out to a comedy night, which will be very exciting. It's one of Damien's friends' sister who's over from the UK over to Perth to do her comedy show. So I'm very much looking forward to that. It'll be quite a nice night out. I don't tend to go out on Saturday nights all that very much. Usually I'm home knitting, which is fine with me. But it will be nice to have a night out as well. I've got a few things to show you because the last time we saw each other was on Good Friday last week. I then had the whole weekend, public holiday for Easter Monday, and then I had a day off for my rostered day off. So I have done a bit of knitting, done unfortunately a bit of frogging as well, but we'll get to that later. And in the meantime, let's go and broach the subject before we start with the knitting. Today I'm sporting a very cute little bat, and that is from a Perth maker who can be found on Etsy under the shop name Tall Rabbit. I have mentioned Tall Rabbit before. I've got several of her pieces, and she also very kindly donated some alpaca brooches for us to be used as prizes, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that coming up in another section because we're going to use them for a prize in April, which will be exciting. So I love bats. We love Batman in this house. Bats are just a good theme to have for me, I think. Goes quite nicely with the outfit, I feel. And I saw Batman vs Superman with Damien the other day. I quite enjoyed it. I know it's got mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it. I certainly didn't hate it at all. I thought it was very watchable. I wouldn't say it was my favourite movie of all time. I wasn't so keen, speaking of bats, of how they characterised Batman. I didn't feel that was necessarily accurate, and it was a little bit annoying. But not so annoying that it was a problem, if that makes sense. Wonder Woman was great. I thought the actress Gal Gadot did a great job. I really loved the costuming they had her in prior to the reveal that she was Wonder Woman. A lot of her dresses had, gold medal bands around the neck or silver and metal items. So it really worked well with her character in a sort of a little subtle wink, wink, haha, this is Wonder Woman, you don't know yet kind of a way. So we shall see. Now, the decision I have to make is in June for the Perth Supernova Comic Convention. Gal Gadot is actually coming as a guest, so I have to decide if I'm going to have a photo and or autograph session with her. I would really like to, but they're usually pretty expensive. But it's Wonder Woman, so as I'm talking it out, I'm kind of thinking, where's the decision? Having said that, I also am planning another photograph session with someone at the same convention, that being James Masters, who plays Spike on Buffy. That's a non-negotiable because he came to Perth about 5 or so years ago, and it was when Sophie was quite young, so we were limited in how much time we could spend at the convention. And I got to see him in one of his panels, but I didn't get to have any further interaction with him. So that's definitely on my list. We shall see. But more on that come June. So let's now move on to the knitting because I've got quite a bit to show you. Two finished objects this week. I had none last week, so you'd hope I'd get to something this week. But anyway, here we go. The first one is my Knit Night shawl, which I am so happy with. It's very long. I measured it pre-blocking. I believe it was about 170 centimetres, 1.7 metres. And after blocking, it's about 220 centimetres, 2.2 metres. So I don't know what that is in yards, I'm sorry. Roundabout the similar. But yes, so that's the middle. So if I fold it in half semi-quickly, we'll see how fast I can do this. You can see it sort of squished into the screen. Isn't that a lovely shot of it? Yeah, that's very, very good, Melinda. Yep. Anyway, I think it's lovely. This is for my friend who I said I'd like to knit her something for the winter. She gave me sort of colours she liked, and blues was one of them. So I think this is great because she'll be able to wrap it all the way around, do all sorts of styling. This is a really good pattern, the Knit Night. It's by Louise Zass Bingham, or Bangham, beg your pardon, Louise, if I've got that wrong. If you've been watching me a while, you'll know that I love this pattern. It's very much my go-to, and it always ends up draping really beautifully. So I used 2 yarns for this one. This is what I've got left of them. This is the Knit Picks in the speckle range. It's aquatic speckle in the hawthorn. And this one I don't have the tag for, but this is One Twisted Tree by the lovely Danny, Prairie Girl Danny from the Prairie Girls Knit and Spin podcast. This colour is Rare Woman Claire, named after Claire from, I've gone blank, what is that Scottish show called? Outlander. Yes, Claire from Outlander. I'm sure you were all yelling that at the screen for me. So this is the Cake That Never Ends, because I used this as one of the colours for my shawl by Stephen West, the Doodler. And I've now used it in Knit Night, and it's still going. So no decisions yet. I mean, there's not a lot there. Oh, I have a nice bangle. So highly recommend Danny's yarns. It's really, really soft. The hawthorn is, it's not rough, but it's not soft. But mixing the two, the overall effect is lovely and squishy. And I knit it on a 5.5mm. As I was knitting, I was worried a little bit that the gauge was too tight, but I think you can see it blocked out quite nicely. And my second finished object is my socks. There's one, there's 2. It's a pair. This is the stitch pattern Hermione's Everyday Sock by the lovely Erica Luda. And I've used the Fish Lips Kiss heel by the lovely Socksetera instead of the heel that is written in the pattern. So they are knit with Knit Picks for Lychee yarn in the teacup colourway. And the heels, oh, that's very, very good way of showing you, isn't it? Heels, toes and cuffs are in the white Knit Picks Stroll that is just called white. It's very descriptive. So as I said, these are for me. Fourth pair of socks in the year, and first one's for me, so that's exciting. I really like how the Hermione's pattern looks in self-striping yarn. I think it's very fun. And I have entered these in both the Inside Number 23 Harry Potter knit along and the Pin Feathers and Pearls Stripy Socks knit along. So very excited to have those. We're getting a little bit of cooler weather here with being autumn. Not that much. The air conditioning's on today. It's 31. Yeah, we'll get there eventually. But that's what I've finished. I have been working on quite a few other things, so moving on to works in progress. First work in progress is my Mama Vertebrae cardigan, and I do believe I mentioned last time that pattern was very kindly given to me last year, possibly even the year before, by Aya. So thank you very much, Aya. And this is where I'm up to now. I've split for the sleeves. I believe last time I was, I don't know, somewhere around here, so I've made quite good progress on that. I've got the sleeves held on spare cable on that side, and a stitch holder on that side. It's all a bit squished up here, but thus far it seems to be safe, so touch wood on that. But that's very exciting. So obviously it's rolling up a bit being stockinette. So you can see I've done quite a bit since doing the sleeve separation. This is knit in Jinx yarns in the Smooth Sport in the Auron colourway. Black and red, beautiful for me. And oh, it's not like you could tell I liked black and red. This is for the Wardrobe Staples Make Along in the Tiny Paper Foxes group, the lovely Jenny. And I think it's going to definitely be finished in time because I believe that knit along goes until June. I think it's quite a longer one because it's making wardrobe items, not necessarily smaller ones. So it's going very well. I got quite a bit knit on it earlier in the week. I had a video conference that went for most of the day. And it ended up being quite unusual because something was wrong with the video conferencing system, and I could hear the people on the other end, but I couldn't see them. The screen was just completely dark, but they could see and hear me. So it was a bit unusual. I ended up just pulling my chair right to the side because I didn't really know what they could see of me, and I had my knitting on my lap, and because I couldn't tell if it was obvious or not, I wanted to be as far off the screen as possible. Not that I think anyone would have minded, and I was certainly participative, and I've mentioned many times before I can do simple stockinette knitting or garter knitting without really looking that much. And I also find that it engages my brain so that I can actually hear and listen, more to the point, with a lot more functionality in terms of that sort of thing. So, but I put to the side because I didn't know, as I said, how I looked. But every time I wanted to speak, because I was assuming I was off screen, I would do this and, you know, duck my head and look at the camera as much as I could. Now, I realised sort of halfway through the day, I could possibly have been in their view the entire time, and therefore what they would have seen was me, you know, sitting still, and then when I spoke, doing a little teapot. So I think my contribution will be XYZ. I'll get a reputation as being interesting if that's the case. Like it wouldn't be anyway. But yes. Anyway, it was very useful. I got quite a bit of this plain knitting done. I already had the sleeves separated. That certainly would have been too complicated to do while I was trying to have mindless knitting. So yeah, quite a bit of that was done courtesy of my video conference, so that was very handy. I have introduced the third of the balls of yarn now, because you may remember last time after I split for the sleeves, last time I mentioned that after I split for the sleeves I wanted to keep that ball of yarn separate so that I can keep that to be the first one I use for the sleeves, so that if there is any difference in dye lot being hand dyed yarn, then it won't be noticeable because the sleeve end and the sleeve start will come from the same skein. So I've got that one separately. I've got that living in this gorgeous bag that I showed a few episodes ago, and that was given to me by the lovely Yvonne, who is Ganesh on Etsy, and it's great red with Japanese writing bag. And the other two, the main ones, are in my bird leg bags, raven or crow bag. So that one's going very well. Next one is my redback spider. I finished the body and the head, so if you have a big spider phobia or just dislike, look away now. But here she is. I've decided to call her Rosie the Redback. It's just a name that popped into my head. So I've done her body and her head, as you can see. This is her red back. Now, my stitching here isn't that neat, and I sort of look at it, and at first I thought, rip it out, it's not perfect. But then I started really liking that it wasn't perfect. I like that it looks rustic. Rustic isn't the word for it because it's not. It looks deliberately handmade. Does that make any sense? It makes sense to me, so I'm leaving it as it is. But yeah, I really like that chunky sewn on effect. And hopefully the recipient will too. She's 3, nearly 4, and loves redback, so I think she'll just love the concept of it. I'm now in the process of knitting legs, so just using I-cord. I mentioned last time I was planning on knitting the I-cord around pipe cleaners, but I decided not to do that because the pipe cleaners, you know, have the furry stuff on them, and I was worried that it would stick through, and I didn't want to have to trim them and fuss with that. I thought it would get a bit messy, and then if I trim it, the wire might poke through and be dangerous, so I just decided to leave it. And given that the I-cord sort of bends like that, I think that'll work quite nicely because I'll be attaching it like this, and then, you know, the bending you won't need the wire to bend them into shape. They'll just sort of naturally stay that way. So I've been looking at photographs on Google Images of redbacks to make sure I get the legs sort of the right length, because they're the 8 legs. There's 2 really long ones and then 2 smaller ones on each side. So knitting different leg lengths and just sort of going along. I did 3 legs this morning. It's not very interesting, so I was torn between thinking, shall I just do them all, get them out of the way? But then I got a bit bored, so I decided, no, make it fun. I've got a few weeks till I have to have it ready, so that's plenty of time. So possibly next time you'll see it finished, possibly not, because I've got a few weeks, so we shall see. But yes, here's Rosie in progress. And Rosie's living in another bird leg bags. This sort of apothecary, witchy, sciencey bag, which is very fun and suits making a spider, I believe. Or in my opinion, I mean. The next bag is very, very, very cute. It's Paddington Bear. And this was made for me. It was a custom order by the lovely Kay of the Bakery Bears podcast. Bakery Bears Cottage on Etsy. And it's got this very cute little heart in the fabric attached, which is lovely, and the red gingham inside. Now, these are socks for Damien, so I can't post them on Instagram because he might see them. His birthday's not till June, but last year, towards the end of the year when I was making gifts, I was finding myself feeling a bit pressured. I'd left it a bit too late, so I'm planning well in advance, and these aren't due until June, but they're going very quickly. So worsted weight socks, brilliant. This is what I have thus far. So this is the start of a fish lips kiss heel, which is why my needles are sort of all wrapped and rolling there. So the yarns that I'm using, get them out here. This is Query Fibre Arts, and this colourway is called Vincent and the Doctor, which if you are a Doctor Who fan or have just heard of it, there's an episode of the Matt Smith Doctor Who, who's the Doctor that I like, where he goes back in time and meets Vincent van Gogh, and that's the inspiration for that one, sort of Starry Nights colourway. And this orange is from No Makers. It's not a colourway on its own. It came in a doppelganger set where Amanda pairs one of her yarns together with a solid that she makes. And it came with a Gnomes of the Corn colourway, where it was a black, orange and white variegated with this one. And 2 years ago, I think it was, I made Damien some worsted weight socks and used this as the accent colour. And he really loves them for winter. He said it's lovely having 100% wool socks, that they're really warm and keep him toasty but not getting too hot, as is the benefit of wool. So I thought I would knit him another pair. Now, black and orange is definitely more his colour palette, but when I was looking at what worsted weight yarn I had initially decided to pair this Vincent and the Doctor colourway with the nice grey, and that did look nice, but then as I was looking through, I was looking at the little orange blips in this, and I thought, haha, perfect. And I'm really, really happy with how it looks. I think that looks just perfect, the way the blue is all tonal, then it's got the yellow and orange going through. Very, very fun. So I only cast these on yesterday, and I haven't worked on them very much, but being the worsted weight and a smaller stitch count, going very quickly indeed. So that would be nice, and it's also good to have a plain project, because a lot of my other projects at the moment are a bit, I wouldn't say fiddly necessarily, some are fiddly, but nothing just plain and go. So I'm having fun with that when I just want to have a little rest. So the project that was a bit fiddly, and I've ripped out and I have to start again, and it was a bit fiddly when I was doing it, and I'm still not sure 100%, but I'm going to try, was this sock. So there was a lot more of it. I mentioned last time that the lovely Twee, Fishgirl182, one half of the Twisted Stitches podcast, kindly bought me the Fine and Dandy sock pattern. And the knit along for that is being run in both the Yarn Junkie and the Brooklyn Knit Folk podcasts. And I knit the toe. Now, I haven't really done a proper toe up sock before. A long time ago, I started a toe up sock and did it so that it was like almost just a perfect arrow. It was ridiculously pointy. And I've put that aside and we'll sort it out later. Yeah, it's been a couple of years now. Maybe not a couple of years. A while anyway. So I followed the directions. I am using two beautiful, beautiful yarns by Wool and Vine Yarns. I've had these in my stash for quite a while. One is the Nevermore. Sorry, I'll show you the yarn itself. Nevermore, one of her Edgar Allan Poe colourways. And the other one, when I bought this, I had asked Kristen to dye me up a lovely red, and she ended up doing two and said, oh, you know, which one would you like? And I was like, I'll take both. As I said, this was a few years ago, so I don't believe Kristen does custom orders unless you're ordering like a sweaters quantity or something. So just to clarify that, I don't want to give anyone false hopes of what she may or may not be able to do now. This was a few years ago. But this is the red that I've chosen to go with this one, and this is the Hemingway's Ball colour. And, oh, so beautiful, so perfect together. So I've done the Hemingway's Ball for my toe, and then I've, as you can see, the yarn wound round here. So I started doing the Fine and Dandy pattern, or rather, I read the pattern, started doing it, and then went, could not understand what was going on. Totally my fault. You know, there's lots of people knitting this and they're all going well and it's all good. So it's obviously my understanding. And I think a semantic issue, I think there was a the and an a that threw me, or it said pick up the stitch and my interpretation would be pick up a stitch. Anyway, I can't say too much because it's a paid for pattern and the money goes to charity. I'm not trying to give it away. My point being, couldn't work it out. Now, I was messaging with the lovely Vicky, who's Davixter from the Sweet Leaps podcast, and she was having similar issues, but through chatting about it, something I said prompted her to have a try at something. Then she sent me a video of what she was doing. So now I think we're both on the right page and I think we're good to go. But what I had ripped out, because I was annoyed with it, and this was all happening on my rostered day off, and I was feeling like I was wasting my day off because my knitting wasn't working. It's terrible. I think I've mentioned this before. Sometimes I feel like a day has worth based on how much progress I have in my knitting, which is just silly because a day has worth for many things. But anyway, that's where I was. So I started knitting instead the Weasley Homestead pattern. Which is a free pattern also by Erica Luda of the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern fame. And it's basically ribbing, but that you alternate. So you do, I think, 6 rows of purl 2, knit 2, then 6 rows of knit 2, purl 2. And that was all going well. But then I had probably about this much done on it. And I was trying it on and going, that's a bit big. Yeah, because I'm not used to toe up and I'm still not quite sure of my stitch numbers with, these are 2.25 millimeter needles, and it's making quite a tight gauge. And this yarn is on the Lush base, which is 80-10-10 Merino Cashmere Nylon. But I think because I've done the gauge so tight, I'm losing a bit of the benefit of that ultra lushness. However, I figure that because it's got the very soft fibres, having a tight gauge will make them very durable socks. That's my theory anyway. So because of all the purl stitches in the Weasley Homestead pattern, they were just way too big. I then tried it on Damien, thinking maybe they'll fit him. No, too small for him. So I just ripped it out and haven't gone back to it yet. That was only this morning, so it's not like it's been a while. But so I'm still working that out. So I'm planning to go back and try the Fine and Dandy pattern. But yes, because I was a bit annoyed at myself, I just put it down for a while and I worked on those plain vanilla socks instead. But I'll get there. And I love the yarns and I cannot wait to knit them up. I think they look beautiful together. The red will be used not only for the toe but for the heel and cuff as well. It's going to look stunning. So more on that later. But I'll show you the bag they're in. I think this beautiful lace and the red and black and white just suits it perfectly. I'm looking to see if there's a tag, but I don't believe it is. But this was made for me by the lovely Anna, who is the purveyor of Analog. And she does not have these kinds of bags in her Etsy shop, but rather ones made from upcycled denim jeans, which are fabulous. And you'll see again shortly when we announce prizes for our knit-along. So that's what I've been working on, bar some squares on my Cozy Memories blanket, but I'll show you those next time because they're sort of spread out around the blanket, so it would be a bit hard to hold it up, but more on that later. And now let's move on to prizes. But just like that, costume change. We had to leave a lot earlier than I thought last night, so I had to stop where I was, and here we are now back on Sunday, and we'll continue on with the show. But first I have to show you my t-shirt. Wonder Woman. Of course. Now, before we get on to who's won lots of our prizes that we're going, I can show you a little bit more quickly of some of my knitting progress because I did some more this morning. So this is now with a heel, the rest of my plain socks in the Query and the No Makers. Now, as I was knitting the heel, I realised that I had not cast on enough stitches to make these for Damien. So these are mine now. Yay! And also, I don't know what I did to the heel, but it looks a little taller. And I ended up in a place that I shouldn't have been, but it still seems fine. So yeah, whatever. My socks with a weird heel, never mind. So those are going quite nicely. And I also did one round of the Fine and Dandy sock pattern. A little bit hard to see. Oh, there you go. One of them has turned, this one, I don't know what I did. You can't even really see that there's a pattern there. Who knows? But I'm just going to keep going and see how it turns out. I think it looks lovely on this Wool and Vine yarn. But now, what you're all waiting for, the winners of the prizes. Our first prize that we're going to talk about is this lovely sheepy shawl pin, and that is for our 1400 member giveaway. Now the draw was only open for just over a week, so we had 57 entries, and our winner was number 15, who is SK Morris 2, who is Kira from Moore in Oklahoma. So congratulations, Kira. Please send me a personal message on Ravelry with your postal address, and I will get this off to you in the mail very soon. So from January to March this year, we had our striped shawls knit along going, and there are so many finished projects, some great works in progress still going in the chatter thread. Thank you so much to everyone for your participation. I hope you enjoyed it. I think most people did. And we have several winners for this one. So we're going to have prizes drawn from both the chatter thread and the finished object thread. So thank you very much to all our sponsors for the prizes. I'll obviously be listing them as I announce who has won. So starting with the chatter thread, we had 631 posts. So as always, if you're not aware, I use the random.org website to use the random number generator to draw the prizes, And we had 2 copies of the Highland Peaks shawl collection, very generously donated by the designer herself, Mina Phillip, who is, of course, Mina from the Knitting Expat podcast. And the Highlands Peak shawl is a beautiful striped shawl with a very lovely lace detailing around the bottom. So whoever wins that will be very excited, I'm sure. And now I'll tell you who won. So the first winner of one of the shawl collections was number 82, who is Vivi Knits, Viv from Essex in the UK. Yay! The other prize winner of the Highlands Peak collection was number 556, who was Vin Girl, Michelle from Indiana. Yay! So Viv and Michelle, if you can get in touch with me, because I will, once I know that you've heard about your winning, I'll then put you in touch with Mina to have her send you the patterns directly through Ravelry. And the third prize winner from the chatter thread wins this skein of Cyborg's Craft Room yarn, which is in the Graveyard Shift colourway. And that was number 397, Yarn About Yarn, who is Christine from Ballina in New South Wales. Yay! Christine has just started her own podcast, actually, which you can find on iTunes, also called Yarn About Yarn. So, Christine, if you get in touch with me with your postal address, and I will get this pretty yarn in the post to you. We had 73 finished objects, which is just very exciting. So we had 2 winners from the finished object thread, and the first person drawn wins this gorgeous box bag that is made by Perth bag maker Analog. I showed you the bag she had given me earlier, but in her Etsy shop, as I mentioned, she's got these great upcycled denim bags. And the winner of this one was number 13, who is Mrs. Frozzy, Gwen from Bathurst in New South Wales. Yay! Gwen, please send me your postal address by private message and I will get this in the post for you. And our second prize for the finished object thread is a gorgeous skein of self-striping yarn from Space Frog Yarns, also an Australian maker. And that winner is number 50, Devixter, Vicky from Winnipeg in Canada. Yay! Vicky, please get in touch with me when you see this, and I will then put you in touch with Space Frog, who will send the yarn directly to you. And our final prize draw of the many for today is for our year-long charity knit along, and that will be drawn once a quarter from the beginning of the thread to whatever the last post is on the day that I draw. So from today, it was up to post 250, and the winner will receive this beautiful skein of Circus Tonic yarns, and it's in the Magpie colourway. And the yarn is beautiful, but please excuse the skeining. That is all me. That is nothing to do with Circus Tonic. As I explained before, it came unskeined, and clearly my skeining skills are not quite up to scratch. So the yarn itself is fine. Just don't judge. the presentation. So the winner from the 250 posts was post number 228, who is Maths Catherine from Melbourne in Australia. Yay! So Catherine, if you can please contact me and I will get this gorgeous skein in the post to you as soon as I receive your address. Thank you very much for all your entries, everyone, or just your participation, your cheering from the sidelines. It's been fun. And now let's move on to what our next knit along is, because we can't have none, can we? So for April, we are going to have a hat knit along. We've already got some comments happening in the thread already, so I think people are quite excited by it. I am definitely planning to cast something on because the mornings are not quite ready for hat weather yet, but they're getting there. And I know with my more exposed upper regions, I will be in the need of some quite warm hats. This will also be a great chance for you to double dip because lots of people are knitting hats for the charity cal. In fact, Catherine, who won the first quarter draw, her winning post was for a hat for charity. So by all means, double dip from the hat cal into my charity cal. With any of my knit-alongs, you can double dip as long as the other cal you're trying to participate in allows double dipping as well. So yes, this is a good chance for you to enter two things in the YarnderWoman at once. We're going to have one thread for this cal in the same way that we do for the charity. So chatter, works in progress, finished objects, all in that one thread, which is already live on Ravelry. So go and have a look. We've got some prizes already organised. One is a donation of the gorgeous Schmancy shawl by the designer Marsha Ibuki, who is Marsha Fairy Little from the Twist and Stitch podcast. And we've also got 2 alpaca brooches from Tall Rabbit being the brooch I was wearing in today's episode in the earlier footage. So I will also be wrangling some more prizes together for you, so I'll give you an update when they come in. But for now, we've got the beautiful brooches and the beautiful shawl pattern. So get your hats organised. WIPs are encouraged as well. Oh, well, encouraged isn't the word. I don't mind WIPs or new projects. If you are going to be entering a hat that you've already started, there is the one rule that it has to be finished within the month of April. So it can't be one that you've knit earlier in the year and just enter it in. You can have already started it, but you have to cast off and finish it after 1st of April before the 30th of April. So other than that, anything goes in terms of what you can knit. All the rules that are in the thread are at the top of the post, and enjoy your hat knitting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what people are making, and I can't wait to start one myself. And I'm also really looking forward to the 2nd annual Opposites Knit Along that we're going to hold in conjunction with Sally Jane of the Pink Hair Girls Knits podcast. Some of you may be aware that we did this Opposites Knit Along last year, and we're going to have it again. So it's going to be in May and June 2016. And if you're not familiar, if you just need a little refresher, you basically knit something that can be described as opposite. So, for example, if you usually do top-down socks, you could do toe-up socks. If you're in winter, as Sally Jane and I will be in the Southern Hemisphere, but you knit a summer top, that's how it works. So pretty much however you can describe it as being opposite, that will work. So there'll be more details coming as we get closer, but just as something to keep in mind, that will be going in May and June. I've been listening to some really good audiobooks lately. It's part of a trilogy called The Fear Saga by Stephen Moss. I'm on to the 3rd book now, and I've only got about 6 hours to go, so I'm nearly there, so things are starting to come to a head. Each book is about 40 to 50 hours long, so they're very long and very intense. It's science fiction, but with a real emphasis on the science. And the way I would describe it is similar to The Martian by Andy Weir. I think a lot of people have read that and other movies come out. So it's science fiction in that it relates to an alien race and humanity, but it's utilising science more than a space opera type of thing, if that makes sense. The narrator of the audiobook is R.C. Bray, who actually also narrated The Martian. So he is very talented, and it really brings the story to life as well. So the premise of the first book, and this is not giving anything away, this is in the summary of the book where you can see it on Audible or the back of a book, is that an alien race is making its way to Earth, won't be here for 10 years, but it sends ahead 6 of its people, people's not the word, but 6, early agents to make sure Earth is ready to be invaded. So from there, the story progresses. I won't tell you what happens, but really, really good. I am more interested in literary fiction usually, but this kind of science fiction I find fascinating. I don't have a science mind, but it's not so complicated that you can't understand, obviously, because that would exclude a lot of readers. But it's really interesting and very intelligent, but the character work is also very good. It's not bland. It's really well written. One of the techniques the author uses, it'll start a chapter and introduce a character, and you'll get to see everything that's happening in their viewpoint, and that will either just be a way to further the story, or we might come back to that character later, we might never hear from them again. But it's a really clever way of just really honing your focus into what's happening in that moment while the rest of the story is also happening around. So if you think that you would like that sort of thing, I highly recommend it. So it's The Fear Saga by Stephen Moss. And something that I am really excited to be able to announce is that I have confirmed that I am going to the Australian Sheep and Wool Show in Bendigo in July this year. So for those who aren't aware, the Bendigo show, as it is called colloquially, is the equivalent to Rhinebeck. Not quite as big in terms of vendors. I think it's definitely got more of a focus on the sheep and the animal side of things, but also lots of vendors and other parts of the festival going on as well. So my mum and I are flying over to Victoria, which is the other side of Australia, and then we'll be travelling to Bendigo to stay for the full 3 days of the festival. I've already mentioned this on Instagram, and I know several people have said that they're also going, so I'd definitely like to arrange a meetup for anyone who is interested. So I might put a thread up in the Ravelry group, and we can try and work something out. So if you are going or thinking of going, definitely come and say hello in that thread, and we'll try and work out a meetup. I think that would be so exciting. I've never been to a festival like this. Last year I went to a sort of fibre fair that was in a small town here in Perth, and that was lovely, but certainly nothing very big. It had one small hall worth of vendors and some animals and such, but that was very, very much a small scale. So I've never been to such a big festival before, and from hearing about all the special ones that are in America and the UK and Canada as well, now I've been hearing about more of those on some podcasts as well. I'm so excited to be able to attend one in Australia, so more on that as it happens, but yes, very excited. With that, I think we're ready to wrap up. You may have noticed that the last 3 weeks I've been releasing a weekly episode, whereas before I was doing fortnightly every 2 weeks that were longer. So I'm going to see how I go, because I think having a shorter episode might work for some people in terms of finding the time to watch. I know I like longer podcasts, and I know other people do as well, but I'm trying to find that balance where I can still chat with you and make it easy for you to access. And I quite like this weekly format. I think it's quite good. It makes it a smaller bite-sized pieces. So let me know either way if you prefer weekly or fortnightly. Obviously, I won't be able to cater to everyone's taste. It will just be when I have capacity to record and edit. But at the moment, we'll try for the weekly and we'll see how we go. Everyone who won a prize today, please get in touch with me. Everyone else, please join in the knit along for the hats if you are able to and interested. And for everyone watching, happy crafting. Bye-bye.